Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jen with Happy Humble Home, and today we're going to be doing some egg preservation by doing some egg glassing. But before we jump into the actual video, if you haven't already, be sure to go ahead and click that little subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you haven't, make sure that your little bell is on so that way you get notified of all the videos here on Happy Humble Home. We'll upload stuff from hiking trips, backpacking, homeschooling stuff, gardening stuff, recipes, kind of everything in between. So if you want to check that out, be sure to go check out the other videos and give us a subscribe. Thanks, y'all. Alright guys, so the egg preservation that we're going to be doing today is called egg glassing or water glassing. I first come across this preservation method, I guess, a couple years ago, whenever I was watching some YouTube videos, and specifically Carolyn from Homesteading Family. I'll be sure to leave that video in the link as well if you can go check out her video. But that's the video I found that even talked about this idea, and I've never heard of it before. So I did my research, and I've been trying to egg glass eggs for several years now, and it works beautifully. If you've been on my channel for a while, you know there was a way that I was playing around with trying to preserve eggs that you would buy from the store by like using some kind of Crisco to create a fake bloom almost. And so if you go back through my YouTube channel, you can see like where I gave updates on how well that worked, just to see if there was a way to preserve store-bought eggs. Well, with egg glassing, you have to have fresh, clean, unwashed eggs that still need to have the bloom on them. I get one of my friends, my egg lady, she makes sure she knows that I want my eggs that are unwashed, and you can see here like how thick, it's kind of hard to tell, but like this one has a really thick bloom on it still. Some of these still have the bloom on them, you just can't see it because it's not as thick. But whenever I get eggs from her, I just pull out the ones that are clean enough for me to use for my egg glassing, and then the other ones we just use in our basic everyday life. So right here I have a good little batch ready to do the egg glassing. So basically what it is you are preserving the eggs in a lime scale type, or in a lime water basically, for lack of better words. And these are shelf stable. I have used egg glass, when I have egg glassed them, I've used them up at about a year mark or a little over a year. I could not tell any difference. Anytime I use fresh eggs, or really eggs in general, but mainly fresh eggs, I always crack them over a separate container and not directly in a recipe, just so that way, you know, if one of them's bad and I don't catch it, then I don't ruin my whole recipe. But I've never had any go bad. Again, if you go back and watch my experiments with the egg experiment, you'll kind of see a little bit different outcome and at what point that kind of quit working. But I have used these up to a year. Usually I'll just write on a glass jar. You can see here we already have some ready to go. So this is just a gallon size jar, which typically for a gallon size jar, I can get about 2 to 2.5 dozen eggs in a gallon size jar. And then I'll just set them in my pantry. I'll write the date on them of when I started the jar, and then that way I can kind of know which eggs I need to use first. So it's very simple, very basic. You just need some kind of container. You can use a big plastic jar, or plastic bucket, glass jar, something just to hold your eggs, and it will be able to be shut so that way it can keep out any dust or anything like that that may try to get in your eggs. So we need your glass jar, you need your clean eggs that are unwashed with their bloom on them but still clean. And then this is what I use. I use pickling lime. Now this lime I had to get both times. This is starting my second bag. I've always had to get it off Amazon. I don't really know why. I don't know if just stores around here, or maybe it's just the Walmart that I go to doesn't ever have pickling lime. You know, I may try somewhere like TSC or somewhere might have it, but I've just ordered it off Amazon. And considering egg glassing is the only thing I use this for, it actually lasts a very long time because you don't need a lot of it per batch. So, and then you will also need water. So I'll give you the ratio and I'll put it in the link below as well, or in the description box below as well. And then just some kind of container to mix it all in. And a scale also comes in handy. So, because when we're talking about the ratios for it. So it's very basic, very simple, okay? So all you're gonna do is you're gonna take 1 quart of water. I already measured it out so that way it gives me room to stir, because typically I would just go ahead and mix everything in here and then put my eggs in. But when I started this batch, I was almost out of my pickling lime, so I had to kind of do like 3/4 of a batch. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix my lime water here, and then I'll just pour it in. But typically you can do it all in one. It makes the process a little bit simpler, but for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna just mix that, and there's still space in the jar for me to use. So we have 1 quart of water that I measured out. So you'll take 1 quart of water to 1 ounce by weight of your pickling lime. So I just have my little kitchen scale here. So we're just gonna spoon in the lime scale to make sure that we're getting it good. So we're gonna just tear it out, and then now I'm just gonna spoon it in until I get to 1 ounce of lime. So you can also do this with duck eggs and also quail eggs. I have never actually tried it, but I do have a friend that has some quail, so I'm hoping to be able to try to get some quail eggs from her, and then also see if you can egg glass them as well. So we will see. But research, it's the same process. You just need to make sure they're clean and unwashed and have their bloom on them. So here is my 1 ounce by weight of lime. So we're just gonna kind of pour that in, and then we're just gonna give this a good little stir. We're just gonna give this a good mix. And is that whenever you get ready to use the eggs, you need to make sure you wash them really good and remove any lime, even though they're already clean from, you know, any kind of dirt and that kind of stuff. But you do want to make sure you rinse off the lime really good before you use them. So just give them a good wash like you would any fresh eggs to begin with. All right, so we're just going to set that. My little scale out of the way. And this is just an old pickle jar. It was one that I had cleaned out, like let it air out, clean it out, wash it out really good from all the vinegar that was in it. So we're just gonna, and typically in 1 gallon, in a gallon jar, I can typically do 2 quarts of water to 2 ounces of lime. And then that, by the time I put my eggs in, that gives me pretty much a full jar. You can kind of see here how high my jar usually goes. So as you've seen before, once the water's, once the lime settles, it will all settle to the bottom, and that's okay. We're going to just simply place these in there and then just very gently stack the eggs. And then that's really it. Okay, so one other thing that you want to do is whenever you can store them, if you've seen, I was kind of like, almost like puzzle piecing, trying to fit the eggs together. Because once you're able to kind of set your eggs directly where you want, once you get a couple layers, you want to try to store them with the small side down and the bigger side up. It just helps it keep it fresher. That way, I mean, if they fall over, it's not a big deal. But ideally, that's the best way to store them. And as you can see here, I've got one that's just sticking above the water. I had about 18 eggs there, 1.5 dozen there. So, and I have one that's just sticking above the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get about a quarter of a quart. There we go. So I'm gonna get, I'm just gonna put about a quarter of the ratio in there, just enough to cover that. So yeah, let's speed through that real quick. This is also one reason it's better to go ahead and have, if you know how much you're wanting to go ahead and mix up. If you're wanting to go ahead and have 2 quarts worth mixed up, it's easier to do that. But just if, like in this case, you have to add it, just make sure your math, you keep your ratios the same pretty much is all you need to do. Let's tear that out. Okay, so now we're gonna mix this up again, and just hopefully this should be enough just to cover that one little egg. And this is a jar that I have used before, the egg glassing. That's why you kind of could see the limescale buildup. It's the only thing that I use that jar for. Just make sure your jar is good and clean before you start using it and before you start making another batch. If it's in a container you've already used, just make sure it's good and cleaned out. And you can already see where some of my lime has started to go down just over the course of the video. So now hopefully this should be enough just to cover that one little egg. Perfect. And now there's still just a little bit showing, so we're just going to kind of turn him on his side more so that way he is definitely still under the water. So yeah, I think there's right about 2 dozen. So see, now I can kind of, there we go. Found a little nice spot for him to tuck in nicely into the little puzzle. But there you have it, y'all. This is very simple, very quick, easy to do. And then now I'll just store these. Like I said, I'll write on my jar when I first started this particular jar. That way I know everything at the bottom, kind of roughly how old everything is in there and which jar I would need to go ahead and use first. The only thing I haven't been able to figure out a lot is if you wanted to use glassed eggs for hard boiling, once you clean them off really good, you need to take like a tack or something like that and kind of poke a few holes in the eggshell just to let off, just to be able to let that heat escape. Whenever I did it, I still had some of my shells, like it would still bust through the shell a little bit, so it wasn't the prettiest eggs if you was wanting to do them for deviled eggs, but I haven't really played around with them much. I only tried that one time. So yeah, maybe someone has a tip on how to be able to use glass eggs to make pretty deviled eggs. I don't know. But that's pretty much it. So super easy, super simple. I'll be sure to leave the instructions in the comment section or in the description box. I'll leave the descriptions there. I'll also leave the link to that other video where she goes a little bit more in depth with it, but this is kind of just the basics of what you do for egg glassing. And as always, if y'all have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. Thank y'all so much for watching. I'll catch you with you later.